Yeah. So Dukes, I wanted to talk to you about, we were talking to Wiltfong yesterday. So Steve Wiltfong, who works with you on the On3 Recruits channel, the Wiltfong Whip Around, the godfather of recruiting reporting. And we were talking about, what players want. And we were talking about Julian Lewis. And Wiltfong brings up an interesting point, and I've not been able to get it out of my head. So Julian Lewis, quarterback from Carrollton, Georgia, he's committed to USC, but he's looked at Colorado. He had an official visit there last weekend. He's looked at Indiana. He's looked at Auburn. And Wiltfong pointed out that the way Lincoln Riley recruits QBs, he only recruits one, and he's not one of those coaches that'll play one against the other. Like, if you're his guy, you're his guy. And you've got the track record of Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, the year with Jalen Hurts, Caleb Williams. Can you say no to that? Like, does JuJu have to stick with USC? Like, can you turn down Lincoln Riley as a quarterback?
It's going to be hard. When you look at how he recruits, he locks in on a guy. He's going and he lets you know why you're his guy. He's going to show you what you're going to be able to do in that offense, why your skill set really would adapt well to that offense, and how he's going to coach you, not just having the head coach being like a guy who's over. Sometimes you get a head coach who's another position guy or another position coach. Well, when your head coach is the quarterback coach and the coordinator, you have a certain bit of synergy that you don't really have in other situations. Lincoln Riley knows that. He has the track record. He has guys that he can call who can relate to you. Who else can get Caleb Williams on the phone right now, probably in the college game, probably besides Lincoln Riley? Why? Because he just coached him and helped him become number one. So if you have those type of aspirations, Lincoln Riley makes a really, really tough case against telling him no. Now, when you have a quarterback or a recruit like Julian Lewis, who for all intents and purposes has been the number one quarterback since he's basically started playing quarterback, he already has a team around him. His father is right there. He's been guiding him through the way. So they're going to be a lot more pragmatic in their decision-making and saying, okay, how does this fit? Does this fit? Does this fit? But there's a reason that he committed to Lincoln Riley as early as he did. And that, like, he committed to him in 10th grade, even though he reclassed up. You're basically looking at a rising junior, even though he's a senior now. So go ahead.
Oh, no, I was thinking about this. Another quarterback in the state of Georgia that Lincoln Riley was recruiting a few years ago, like Brock Vandegrift was that guy. For those who don't know the Caleb Williams story, Brock Vandegrift was the guy in that class for Lincoln Riley. And then he flipped to Georgia because he wanted to play for his home state school. And Brock Vandegrift, the way that story evolved is he's at Georgia, doesn't become the starter. Now he's at Kentucky. He'll be the starter there. But like, what do you think Brock Vandegrift is thinking as he watches Caleb Williams do all that stuff?
I mean, he's got to be thinking maybe a slight kick to himself. When you think about Brock Vandegrift and being a guy, but he was literally in Athens, like right outside of Athens. He was really the guy. I think he was at Prince Christian Academy. I think that's the name of it.
Yep.
When you have a guy that has that type of hometown like pull on him, Dad's a Georgia fan. Dad's been around the program a long time. Dad was the head coach at the school. So he had a different amount of pull than the average quarterback does when you talk about being outside of a powerhouse program that wants you to be the guy. Now, the way it turned out, of course, he's probably thinking, man, it would have been so much different if I would have went with Lincoln Riley. I look at Caleb Williams. I have a similar skill set. And to answer your question, I absolutely think that he thinks about it. But now he's in a position where he can go show his skills, similar to like a Spencer Rattler type deal where, it didn't work out for me, but I found a place where I could get enough film to make myself attractive to the NFL. And if you look at the reports from the OTAs, Spencer Rattler has been doing this thing. So I really think that Brock Vandegrift, he'll be fine.
But it's interesting because this also speaks to how Lincoln Riley evaluates, and he doesn't seem to miss very often. Malachi Nelson, who left USC for Boise State, we'll see what happens with him. But Spencer Rattler got beat out by Caleb Williams. There's no shame in that. Wound up being an effective starter at South Carolina, getting drafted. The guys that Riley's brought in who haven't become the star have still been very good. And then you obviously you've got what he did with Baker Mayfield, what he did with Kyler Murray, what he did with Jalen Hurts, what he did with Caleb Williams. So, but the other thing that is interesting and that I want to point out to people, this is the part that Wiltfong was saying that really got me, is the way Riley recruits QBs, because it's a little bit different than other coaches. A lot of coaches will kind of play one QB against another. They'll offer two and say, we're taking the first one who commits. That's not how Riley operates. Like, you are his guy. Even if you haven't committed yet and he's decided you're his guy until you tell him no, and then he'll go find another guy. But that's like, if Julian Lewis did decide to flip, like, the domino effect would be crazy, because that means Lincoln Riley would have to pick hand pick another guy, because he probably doesn't have another guy he's got on the hook right now.
Yeah, but I think that the way college football teams evaluate now, even though he may not be recruiting a guy, there's a guy that they've identified who has the traits that could be the type of guy who would work in that offense. And then you also have to think about, every year there's this guy who nobody's talking about. This year right now is Keelan Russell, who just committed to Alabama, who was committed to SMU. And as the season started to unfold, the recruiting season, the cycle, that's a better word. As the cycle started to unfold and play itself out, you started to see people say, hey, you know what? This Keelan Russell guy is pretty good. Oh, he's committed to SMU. Is he a guy that we want to take? And then you go look at the film and say, no, SMU just did a heck of a job evaluating, because they've got a guy. And so now when there are guys in the 4-star range who are committed to other schools, who are getting bigger, who are getting faster, who are getting smarter, and they're developing at a rapid rate, that Lincoln Riley may go back and look and say, now at this time, he wasn't the guy. At the time that Julian Lewis became the guy, imagine how much better other quarterbacks have become in the last year and a half. And I think that's where, if this does go left for USC, that's where I think the silver lining is that you have to trust Lincoln Riley's evaluation, and there will be options. There are options, and there's been nobody better in college football at selecting the option to play the trigger man than Lincoln Riley.
Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples on 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.